A hole in the door should be measured with the width of a fist. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Reb Tarfon says the hole is measured with a square handbreadth. If the carpenter left the space at the bottom of the top or the top, and he did not complete the door at the window the wind opening the door, the hole is measured with the size of a fist. There's no minimum size for a hole that is made for a stick, a sword, or a lamp, according to Reb Shammai. The symbol says a square handbreadth. If a hole is made to be a peephole, to speak with his friend, or for other uses, the minimum size is a square handbreadth. The following items reduce the opening to less than a handbreadth. Less than an olive-sized piece of flesh reduce the opening if the source of tumah is a quarter of a cog of bone. A piece of bone smaller than a barley comb reduces the opening, and if the source of tumah is an olive-sized piece of corpse flesh, less than an olive-sized piece of corpse flesh, less than an olive-sized piece of carcass, less than a lentil-sized piece of sherrits, less than an egg-sized piece of grain covering the window, a thick spider web, the carcass of a kosher species of a bird that was not designated for food, the carcass of a non-kosher species of bird that was designated for food was not rendered capable of contracting tumah, or was rendered capable of contracting tumah, but was not designated for food.
Okay.
Okay.
Vav is the converse of the previous Mishnah. The things that you cannot use to remove do not count to reduce the size of the window. So if you've got a piece of a small fragment of bone that's less than a barley corn, but your tumah in the room comes from bones, it's the same. If it's the same type, then it doesn't count to reduce the window. Lo basar ali de habasar, and similarly flesh. If you've got half a kazais of flesh in the window and and it's flesh inside the room, then it joins with the flesh that's in the room. So it's more than a kazais. V'lo basar ali de basar, v'lo kazais min ha-meis. So when we're talking about basar, the first one is talking about any kind of flesh. That's interesting. Look, kazayis. Oh, right. That is talking about kazayis min ha-meis, because right there. I mean, the commentary says that kazayis min ha-meis. The next thing that it says, look, kazayis min ha-meis, is like everyone's scratching their heads and saying, why do we mention this here? It's literally been mentioned. But the reason why it's mentioned is because there's a whole laundry list of things over here that we mentioned in the previous Mishnah, which was similar. So it says pachos mikazayis min ha-meis, pachos mikazayis min ha-nevela. So now our Mishnah follows exactly the same formula, but it's not pachos. It is a kazayis min ha-meis. Lo kazayis min ha-meis, lo kazayis min ha-nevela, lo ka'adasha min ha-sheretz, a lentils bulk of a sheretz, lo kazayis kabetza ochlim, and a kabetza of food, lo tavua shebachalanos, and not grain that is growing in the window, so right next to the window, because it's something that would disturb the window's view. It's considered, and somebody would likely cut it down. It's considered as if it's already cut down, and therefore it's not. It can't be counted to block the window. And not spider webs that are insubstantial. And not a dead bird carcass, a kosher bird carcass that he had already designated as food. And also the carcass of a non-kosher bird that he not only considered, that he not only designated as food, but also prepared or washed or something like that. A hichshir is probably washed. Yeah, so he wet it. And now he adds on, the Mishnah adds on a few things that weren't in the previous Mishnah. The warp thread or weft thread that have tzaras. And also not a brick made out of clay from a beis hapras. Divrei Rabbi Meir. They say no. Once the ground from the base of pras has been taken out and reconstituted into a brick, the gezerah of a base of pras no longer applies to it. General rule: so something that is tahor can reduce the size of the window. Something that is susceptible to tumah cannot reduce the size of the window. Okay, that's it for that section. Chapter 14, Hayas Ziz. Okay, so now we're talking about ledges outside outside the building, joining and spreading the tumah around the building. Okay, so now Haziz maybe as a tumah kol shehu. So this is a little ledge that runs above the door or a window. Okay, so
Right.
so just above the lintel, it extends a little bit further out into the open air. No matter how big it is, it extends the tumah, and if tumah passes underneath that lintel, it'll spread it into the house. Hagizra hagavlis beposech tefach. However, a gizra and a gavlis, which are kind of I guess a balcony of some sort, those will only bring tumah into the house if they're over the door, if they extend out by a tefach. Okay, now I was just thinking, like, what kind of balcony is going to be a tefach wide? And I was thinking, you could have that if you have sort of a medorag, sort of a step thing, where the entrance of the lower floor has a merpeset on top of it, but the merpeset just extends a little bit further out.
A diagram here, but it's not like
Right, so that's your lintel that's serving the door. I'm talking about the
Right.
case where it's serving the balcony above. So I'm thinking if it's like it goes up and has a step backwards. So the second floor, or the floor above the ground floor has got a merpeset above the door. So it's and it just extends a little bit out, but it extends it extends even less than slightly less than a tefach. That will not bring the tumah into the house. Okay. Ezehu ziz. What's the difference between the ziz, which is the lintel, and the merpeset, right? Ezehu ziz shepanav lemata. You can tell that by which face is where the face is. If the face is downwards and it's serving the door, then you judge it by kol shehu. However wide it is how much it'll because it's considered part of the door. By gizra, and what's a gizra? Shepanei lamala, because if it's rough and unfinished on the bottom, that shows that it's not serving the door; it's serving the merpeset above. But me amru, ziz maybe as a tumah kol shehu, and in what situation are they talking about that it will bring the tumah, even whatever width it is? Beziz shehu gavoa min pesach shlosha nidbachin. It can be higher than the door, up to 3 rows of bricks. Shehem shnei masar tefach. That's 12 tefachim. So you could have a ledge that's might be protecting the guy standing outside the door from the rain or something. However much it is, it brings in the tumah. Yaser mikan. However, if it's more than 12 tefachim above the door, then then it reverts to the law of the gizra, which is maybe it's a tumah b'poseach tefach. It needs to be a tefach wide in order to spread tumah into the doorway. Ataros v'hapituchim mevi'in is a tumah b'poseach tefach. So any kind of decorations and embellishments around the door, mevi'in is a tumah b'poseach tefach. They also require a tefach space and not considered necessarily part of the door. Mishna base ziz she'al gabe pesach maybe is a tumah b'poseach tefach. Now that looks like it's straight in contradiction with the previous Mishnah. Right? It's a ziz that's on top of an entrance, and that spreads the tumah into the entranceway from a tefach only. Okay, so Kahati says this is surprising because this exactly contradicts the previous Mishnah. But he says the Mefarshim. Some Mefarshim explain, according to the Tosefta, that we're talking here about a ziz that is on top of an opening that had been blocked, and therefore it doesn't bring the tumah. It doesn't bring the tumah in unless it's a tefach wide. There are other mafarshim who disagree, but he leaves it as an ayin sham. Okay. Okay. Now, what if you have a ziz that's above a window that is only two finger breadths high? Okay. Or above a window that's the size of maktech. These are the things that we said people might make a peephole or might make something just to let the light in. Okay, and we said that when people make a hole that just lets the light in, or that is a conduit for tumah. Then the Mishnah says kol shehu, any kind of ledge above those those kinds of windows, just like just like a doorway, it's a kol shehu. But Rabbi Yossi says melo, it's however wide the hole is how big the projection has to be in order to spread the tumah into it. And halacha follows Tanakama, not Rabbi Yossi here. Okay.
Right.
Ohalos.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Good vote. If there is a skylight in the roof of a house, then a pot is placed beneath the skylight so that the pot with raised edges would not touch the roof surrounding the skylight, and there is tumah below, inside, or above the pot. The tumah penetrates upward and downward. If the pot is in one handbreadth above the ground and there is tumah below or inside the house, the area below the pot and inside of the house becomes tumah, tameh. But whatever is inside or above the pot remains tahor. If the tumah is inside or above the pot, everything becomes tameh. If a pot was placed on a threshold in such a way that if raised, it would extend over the outer handbreadth. We extend over the outer handbreadth of the lintel, and there is tumah below, inside, or above the pot. The tumah penetrates upward and downward. If the pot is one handbreadth above the ground and there is tumah below or inside the house, the area below the pot and the inside of the house become tameh, but whatever is inside or above the pot remains tahor. If the tumah is inside or above the pot, everything becomes tameh. If the pot was placed on the threshold so that if it was raised, it would not touch an outer handbreadth of the lintel, or if it is touching the side of the lintel and there's tumah underneath the pot, only what is below the pot becomes tameh. If a roof of a house is split and tumah is in the outer part, utensils that are in the inner part remain tahor. If tumah is in the inner part, Beis Shammai says the split must be 4 handbreadths wide for the outer part to remain tahor, whereas Beis Hillel says it remains tahor even if the split is very small. Rabbi Yossi says in the name of Beis Hillel, a handbreadth. If a portico, that's it.
Yeah. Kelim.
Hey, if a kerchief was tamei midrash and one gave it over to be used as a cover for a Torah scroll, it becomes tahor from midrash tumah, but it is tamei with corpse tumah. If a water skin was made into a mat or a mat was made into a water skin, it's tahor. If a water skin was made into a shepherd's pouch or a shepherd's pouch was made into a water skin, if a pillow was made into a bed sheet or a bed sheet was made into a pillow, if a mattress was made into a flat sheet or a flat sheet was made into a mattress, it remains tahor. The general rule is that any article that is changed into an article of the same type of use remains as tumah. If it is changed into an article of a different type of use, it is tahor. If a patch was sewn onto a basket, it contaminates one and invalidates another. If one then separated from the basket contaminates one and invalidates one, but the patch remains tahor. If it was sewn onto a cloth, it contaminates 2 and invalidates 1. If he then separated from the cloth contaminates 1 and invalidates 1, but the patch contaminates 2 and invalidates 1. The same applies if one sewed a patch onto a sack or onto leather. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Shimon rules that it is tahor, and Rabbi Yossi says if he sewed the patch onto leather, it is tahor. Onto a sack, it is tamei since it is woven. Okay. And one more?
Yeah. Done 2 there.
Okay. 9. The minimum measure of 3 by 3 finger breadths that the rabbi stated regarding cloth is that the cloth without the hem. These are the words of Rabbi Shimon, but the sages say the minimum measure is precisely 3 by 3 finger breadths. If a patch was sewn onto a garment as one side on one side and is not considered attached to the two sides, one opposite the other, is considered attached. If it was sewn onto the garment in three shapes of the Greek letter gamma, Rekiva rules of Tame and the common rule of Taho. And Yehuda said, when there are three things, when are these things said with regard to a cloak, but with regard to a shirt,
Sure.
if it's sewn at the top, it is considered attached, but at the bottom is not considered attached. Okay. So we are on to Midos. Okay, Gimel Aleph. The altar was 32 amos by 32 amos. It ascended one amma and went inward one amma, and this tier was for the base. It is found to be 30 by 30 amos. If it ascended 5 amos and went inward one amma, this tier was the ledge. If it is found to be 28 by 28 amos. The space for the horns measured an amma on this side and an amma on that side. It is found to be 26 by 26 amma. The space where the feet of the Kohanim walk measured an amma on this side and an amma on that side, and it is found to be 24 by 24 amos, and this is the place of the pyre. The Rav Rossi said, originally the altar was 28 by 28 amos. It narrowed and ascended in the same manner until it was found that the space of the pyre measured only 28 by 20 by 20. I have a note here that this was only in the first base of Migdash. I wrote down, but when the exiles ascended, they added to the altar 4 amos on the south and 4 amos on the west in the shape of a gamma, as it is stated in Yechezkel that the hearth area is 12 amos by 12 square. It might be thought that the space for the pyre was only 12 by 12 amos. When the verse states it's for quadrants, it teaches that for the center point of the altar that the verse is measuring 12 amos in each direction. And a line of red encircled the altar at the halfway point of its height to separate between the upper bloods and the lower bloods. And the base traversed the entire north side and the entire west side of the altar and consumed 1 amma in the south and 1 amma in the east. At the southwest corner there were 2 holes, one like 2 fine nostrils, so that the sacrificial bloods which were placed on the western base and on the southern base would drain through them and mix together in the stream, and the blood-enriched water would flow out to the Kidron Valley. Below, on the floor of the corner, was a hollow place that measured 1 amma by 1 amma, and on top of this hollow there was 1 marble tile with a ring fixed in it, so that through it they would descend to the shish to clean it. And there was a ramp to the south of the altar which measured 32 amos by a width of 16 amos, and the ramp had an alcove built into its west side where there would be placed the unfit bird katos offerings.
Okay. Vodazora.
And Gimel Chet. One should not sit in its shade, but if he sat, he remains tahor. He should not pass under it, and if he did pass, he is tameh. If he encroached upon the public and one passed beneath it, is tahor. If he permitted to plant vegetables beneath it in the winter, but not in the summer, and lettuce neither in the summer nor in the winter. Yoshi says he may not plant vegetables even in the winter because the foliage falls upon them and becomes fertilizer for them. If he took pieces of wood from it, they are prohibited benefit. If he fired an oven with them, if it's a new one, it must be shattered. If it's an old one, it must be allowed to cool. If he baked bread in it, it is prohibited for benefit, and if it became mixed with others, they are prohibited for all benefits. If Eliezer says he should cast the equivalent benefit to the Dead Sea, they said to him, there is no redemption for idolatrous objects. If he took a shuttle from it, it is prohibited for benefit. If he wove a garment with it, the garment is prohibited for benefit. If it became mixed with others and the others were still others, they are still all prohibited for benefit. If Elias says he should cast the equivalent benefits of the Dead Sea, and they said to him, there is no redemption for idolatrous objects. How does he nullify it? If he pruned it, he trimmed it, or if he took a stick from it and a twig, even a leaf, it is nullified. If he shaved chips from it for his own needs, it remains prohibited. For his own needs, it becomes permitted. Okay.
Okay. Vamos.
Okay, good. A sage who prohibited a woman to her husband because of a vow may not marry her. However, if she refuses to perform Kalitza before him, he may marry her since he is in a court. If any of these have wives who later died, they're permitted to marry them. And if any of these marry others, they then were divorced or widowed, they're permitted to marry them, and all of these are permitted in their sons or their brothers. If there were four brothers, and two of them were married to two sisters, and those married to the sisters died, they required Kalitza, but may not be taken in Yibum. If they went ahead and married them, they must divorce them. If Eliezer says, Beis Shammai say they may keep them, but Beis Hillel says they must divorce them. If one of them was forbidden to one of the brothers by the Arab prohibition, he is forbidden to her but permitted to her sister, while the second brother is forbidden to both. If it was a prohibition by commandments or because of sanctity, she requires Kalitza, but it may not be taken in Yibum.
Right.
If one of them,
No, we've done three.
Okay.
And finally,
Kalayim. Okay. Yud. The marks of weavers and the marks of donjumen are forbidden on account of Kalayim. A single stitch is not considered a fastening and does not come under the prohibition of Kalayim. And if one does it on the Sabbath, he is exempt. If one brings both ends to the same side, it is fastening and comes under the prohibition of Kalayim. And if one undoes it on Shabbos, he is liable. Rabbi Yehuda says if one makes three, a sack and a basket combined to constitute Kalayim. I'm doing a lot.
skip the page in there. You definitely skipped a page.
Definitely skip. Okay, wait a second.
Go back. You were talking about there were two because you're in Barig.
I don't have another page.
There was Rabbi Yossi. There was a Rabbi Yossi in there who like says Meshichos shel Argaman, so the strands of purple wool.
I don't have anything.
In Mishna Tes. You jumped from the middle of Mishna Tes to somewhere in Mishna Yud.
Okay. I didn't do that. Okay. Felted materials are forbidden because they are combined, and edging of wool on linen is forbidden because they are interlaced with the web. Rabbi Yossi says purple wooden cords are forbidden because one stitches them in order that they may hold until tying them up. One may not tie a woolen or with a woolen with a flaxen ribbon or the girdle with loins, even though there may a strap and maybe a strap in the middle.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Okay. All right.
Okay, cool. Hadron alach maseches kilayim, and let's do one from Shvius.
Yes. Okay. Until when it is permitted to plow an orchard on the eve of Shavuot, Beis Shammai says as long as it benefits the fruit, but Beis Hillel says until at the Heret, as the view of these approximates the views of those.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a lovely day.
Have a great day. Enjoy.
Yeah.
And I will see you at Mitzvah Shem tomorrow. Okay. Glad to